supposed to look at the camera?
No, I'm just filming you for people who can't be here.
Oh, this is going to be a long film then.
That's okay. I'm going to post it online or something.
But thanks for leading small groups here at Faith Center. I just believe they're so important. I cannot overstate the importance of the small groups to the health of this church. In fact, I think we all understand that. That's why you do them. But let's talk about that just for a second. Why are small groups important? Just short answers. Why are they important?
Helps to develop your ministry gifts.
Okay, people can share their gifts in a small group. That's excellent. Yes.
More of an ability to study the Bible with other people with different perspectives. You shoot back and forth instead of just unstructured lesson. You can really talk about it, chew it up, and start to debate about it sometimes too. Really learn from each other in a personal way.
I think learning is best, like even just learning works great in a discussion format, in a small group format. Most people learn better that way than a lecture format, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, what else?
I think also for accountability, when there's great need within the group, or same with just their family in general, just keep that connection to call them and just remind them of the need that they were praying about.
It's true. Because, I mean, how much accountability happens here on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night? Practically zero, right? I mean, really, realistically, and that's an important part of our Christian life, is, accountability. What else?
It was one of the few settings where you can actually experience fellowship and get to know other Christians.
Mm-hmm. It's really true. And I think that's one of the, I mean, we could go on. There's so many benefits. I think the two I wrote down is community or fellowship, relationship. I think that's one of the things that's vital to being a Christian. We need each other. We need to be in community. And on our weekend services, we cannot do that very well. You don't build relationship very well unless you're volunteering. Volunteering is a good way to build a relationship, but just attending a service, it has a place. I really believe that. But small groups do something that these services don't do. Second thing is discipleship. I think happens best in a small group. And that's where learning and accountability, and sharing your life in a community, that's what happens. And that's part of discipleship, the discipleship process. So those two things are so important to the life of a Christian. It's like, wow, small groups are vital. And if a person is not in a small group, in my opinion, they are missing out on a very important ingredient in their life that would really help them grow spiritually. I also see it as the glue that would keep people as a part of this church. It's not really spiritual, but I really believe it is. Like if you're in a small group, you're now in community, you're in relationship, you're connected to other people. That's going to keep people here rather than just anonymously going in and out until you have a bad week and then you stop going to church. If you're in a small group, you've got people who are going to, be involved in your life, who are going to walk with you through those things. So those things are things to think about and to ask yourself, if you're a small group leader, what are you doing to make community and discipleship happen within your group? To really tap into these benefits, to keep those at the forefront of your thinking. And also to evaluate your own small group from time to time. Is there anything that you're doing that's really not serving those goals? That God has called us into small groups so that we'll have accountability, discipleship, relationships, that we'll grow spiritually. And I've had groups that maybe were, I don't know, you have to know what you're about as a small group, let's just say that. Because I've had some small groups that were really entry-level small groups that were really, the goal was to get people connected relationally, and it wasn't much more than that. Like, those were activity-oriented small groups. I used to have a geocaching small group, which I won't even explain what that is. But I would have like up to 30 people who would come to that, and we would just go on a hike in the woods or go some park and do this activity together, and we'd build relationship. But that's what we were really all about. We'd talk to each other. We'd probably pray for each other sometimes. But other groups are more intensive, and they have a different purpose. So I think it's important that you know what your purpose is, and you really go after that, and keep that in the forefront. I believe that healthy churches grow. That doesn't mean that every church that's not growing is not healthy, but I'm thankful that Faith Center is in a fairly consistent growth pattern right now. We've seen that for 3 years now. It's slow and steady, but that's really a healthy thing. And so as I was thinking about that, if healthy churches grow, then healthy small groups should grow as well. And I was just thinking about how can we make Faith Center a more accommodating community. how can we do that? And so I think small groups must allow for that growth, to allow new people in the same way a church needs to allow new people. Imagine new people coming into the church. What would make them feel included or excluded? Right? Have you ever been to a church where you felt excluded? What made you feel excluded in that church?
Oh, nobody said hello. Yeah. It's like where this person doesn't exist because they're all visiting with their friends and you were not there.
Yeah. They already have a relationship. They're focused on each other. They don't say hello. Not very hospitable. I've been a part of churches like that. And even as a youth pastor, I remember, you have these accusations of groups being cliquey. Oh, you got this clique or that clique. And the same thing is true with adults. I think in a church, we can go that direction. So I don't believe we're that way. I really don't. But I think we have to be aware of that and to say, what can we do to counteract even that perception so that we can be extremely welcoming to these new people. Like, I just met a group this morning of like 6, well, 2 were from HSU and probably 4 or 5 were from College of the Redwoods. And they were all together and they all knew each other. But for, I think, all but 2 of them, this is their first time here at Faith Center. And I thought, those are the kind of people I want to see coming back. Just to see them keep coming back. So I really want to figure out, with your help and Rachel's help, but collaboratively, how we can continue to multiply our small groups, recruit new leaders, grow small groups, kick people out of your groups in faith so that they might go start another group to allow for growth. That's the hardest thing to do. But, if you've got a group with 10 leaders in it, it's like we love each other, but maybe we should take a risk here and somebody else needs to start a small group. To find a model for growth. And I believe there's not a model, there are models that allow for growth. And, we're willing to work with you to say what would work with you, with your people that you are in your group to allow for a growth and accommodation of new people. So I think that's really important if we're going to keep growing, if we're going to be more than a crowd. Otherwise, we could keep growing and just become this big crowd of people. But if we're going to be a community of healthy, growing disciples, then the small groups are going to have to grow with the church. Any other thoughts, input, comments along those lines?
Yeah, I believe the Lord's kind of been speaking to me about this, and I am willing to, spend 3 or 4 meetings helping people get small groups started. We've been doing it for some time, and we have a pretty healthy small group, and we kind of have a DNA, so to speak, of what we do. And it's all primarily centered around getting the Holy Spirit's presence there. And so, if some of the folks that have never had a small group before would like help, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, I think as small groups grow, we're going to need those kinds of leaders, people who do have experience, who know how to lead a small group discussion, who, have to help coach new leaders. If we had, let's say, we have 30 small groups, Rachel doesn't have the time to work with 30 leaders into the degree. They may need some support, some encouragement, some prayer. They might have questions, so I appreciate that. That's good. Any other thoughts, input as we look ahead? I believe that the future of Faith Center includes small groups being much more visible in the ministry of the church. And there have been seasons where that has been the case. I understand that even like looking back to the 40 Days of Purpose was probably the pinnacle of small group involvement, maybe in terms of the public way of doing it. So we're working on that. We're praying about it. We're just kind of in this, it's not really a maintenance mode, but things are happening. They're happening quite organically, and I believe that we don't necessarily just need a program to run. Small groups can grow and multiply organically when people understand their need for each other. And so we have some of that going on. Small groups that we don't even know about, just because people are getting together because they care about each other and they want to disciple each other and grow. But we're looking for ways of just creating an efficient pathway for small group. And she will assimilate those, and we will work together because we want to help you succeed. You know, and there's all different ideas. And, you know, sometimes small groups that have been going on for a long time might need to end eventually too, and that's hard to do. I was a part of so many small groups that didn't have an end date, and I don't know, it was kind of hard at times. Like, do we just keep going this way forever? But other churches have small groups for seasons, like 3 months at a time, or 10 weeks at a time. And that works where that's being done a lot, like where it becomes the culture of the church. Now, that's not our culture here, but there's that potential for those kinds of groups here, where you say, you know what, I'm just going to do a small group. In the summer, it's going to be a barbecue small group. You know, at least that's what we're going to do for food. We're going to have this Bible study, or, you know, whatever it is that's going to work. We're open to new ideas. But thank you for what you're doing, because you're doing something great, as far as I'm concerned. And it's an honor to serve you, and your input is extremely valuable. We don't have all the answers. We're all leaders together, and we're all pastors together. Well, most of us are. You know, I think the pastoral gift functions well in a small group. So some of you might even recognize you have that gift, or maybe you don't. You just have that. So it's about loving people, caring for people, discipling people. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.